Hey everyone, Curse Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted, and right now we are looking at Kenrith the Returned King, a Timmy deck sent by Arctic. Before we get too far into the deck, I like to point out that we've hit and passed 250 subscribers. I know in terms of YouTube and our online culture, that's not very high, but to me, that's mind-blowing. It is so cool that so many of you have tuned into the channel, and I really do appreciate all of the support you've shown. Our deck today comes from Arctic, who has also graciously supported the channel to bring their deck to the front of the list. Thank you so much, Arctic. I really appreciate it. This is their Kenrith Returned King deck. It is a Timmy style deck. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean the fun of it is playing large creatures with exciting powers. That's the fun of the deck. The strategy is lower the ability cost, reanimate big creatures to swing with. But the problems they're finding is that the ramp isn't ideal and they're being held back by mana restrictions or not having enough mana. And that's kind of stopping them from winning games they feel like they should be winning. And finally, they have a budget about $1,000 US is what they say, which is probably a lot more than needed at this point. We're going to make some small changes to start with, and then see how the deck adapts to that. As always, if you'd like to send me your own deck for me to take a look at and make a video of, there's a form in the video description down below. And if you would like your deck to be the next deck I make a video of, like Arctic, you can support the channel with a link in the video description and bring your deck all the way to the front. Finally, if you'd like to take a look at this deck itself, and the deck list here, there is a link in the video description so that you can look at Arctic's deck and see if you've thought of anything that I have missed, because odds are I've probably missed something. So who is Kenrith the Returned King, and why are they our Timmy Reanimation commander? Kenrith is a 5-mana white creature, human noble, 5/5, lots of 5s here, with 5 abilities, and each ability is one of the 5 colors of magic. How fun. So, each ability has a different effect, and because the abilities are in all the colors, Kenrith is actually a 5-color commander. Red for trample and haste for all creatures, not just your own. 1 in a green for a +1/+1 counter on a creature, 2 in a white for 5 life, 3 in a blue for card draw, and 4 in a black to reanimate a creature. Now, I believe the first and the last ability are the most important ones here. With the 5-mana ability being Reanimation, which is a particularly strong ability, and the red or the 1-mana ability to give them haste and trample, to immediately send them in. The thing with Kenrith that's really cool is that he kind of represents a very wide power, how do I put this? Like a wide net for power. You can play him at an exceptionally strong way, EDH even, or you can just play him, putting out really big creatures. This versatility also kind of applies to how you want to use his colors. The thing is, he is 5 colors, but you don't need to play all 5. You need to at least play white, and then you can just put in the colors that you want, right? Now, I'm not recommending this as like a surefire strategy or to not put the other colors in, but if you wanted to make this into a Mardu Reanimator by taking out green and blue and just playing the Mardu colors of red, white, and black, you could very successfully do that. And I think it's something worth considering for people building with Kenrith. We do have a budget to work with to fix up. Oh, I said we wouldn't be cracking into that budget. We might be cracking into that budget. I lied for mana reasons, but it's not necessary, right? But for those who might be on a bit more budget for mana-wise, it might be a bit easier to, pick a few colors you want to go with Kenrith, and then kind of expand as you can expand the deck. But I've spoken about the commander long enough. Let's look at the deck itself. Well, the first thing I'd like to do is I want to take a look at our curve, because as you can see, I find the curve to be the most notable thing about this deck. As you can see, we have a nice little spike to 2 mana, and the curve starts going down, but for 5, 6, and 7 and above, we have 9 cards in each of those sections. That is a very, very aggressive curve. It is, well, I guess aggressive, I mean in the sense that it demands my attention is how it's aggressive. Maybe not an aggro deck curve. It is a high curve, right? Especially near the end where we have so many high cards. We have basically, looking here, 27 5 mana or higher cards in our deck. That is more than a quarter of our deck, and that's maybe too much. So there's a few ways I want to attack this. The first thing I want to do is we're going to talk about in inclusions some mana rocks and some lands to kind of improve the situation. But something else that I'd like to do is kind of just take a look at the mana cost of our cards. And though generally I'm going to look at a lot of these cards, I'm going to start by, as I always do, looking at the cards that share the mana cost of our commander. Because those are the cards that are going to compete in that mana space. You know, you're going to decide which one you want to cast, and we want Kenrith out as fast as possible to reanimate our creatures. And also, Kenrith is just a beast. Once we have Kenrith out, the ability to draw cards, the ability to haste ours or our opponent's creatures, the ability to start reanimating, these are all really, really good. And with that in mind, the sooner we can get Kenrith out, the sooner we can reduce his activated ability, the happier we're going to be. And with that in mind, so let's start by looking at a few of our 5 drops, right? Now, I'm going to go into this with the Timmy ideal, right? What that means to me is that the creatures we're going to play need to be splashy, they need to be big, they need to do something right away. And with that in mind, some of these cards are going to be less useful for that kind of strategy. And the cards I'm going to suggest may not be the strongest Kenrith cards, but they're going to be the Timmiest cards. For people who've seen the channel before, they know what this is, what's up, but I will say to our newer viewers, as we've gained a few, my goal is not to make the strongest version of this deck, right? Our goal is to make the most successful version of the deck. What does that mean? Well, I'm not going to just put in the infinite combos that make Kenrith really, really good. And I'm not going to super hyper focus on all the weird shenanigans we do with Kenrith, because right now the deck has a theme, the deck has a goal, and that's reanimation of big creatures. So what we're going to do is going to try to stay in that zone. So let's start looking at our 5 drops. And already I've got some thoughts on a few of them. Let's see, Goblin Dark Dwellers feels just a little too grindy, maybe the right word. So I get kind of why this is in here. Goblin Dark Dwellers comes into play. You can, if you have reanimated it, you can then use this to hopefully cast the reanimation spell, such as Reanimate, again for free, or use Kenrith to cast that reanimation spell. And though I'm going to suggest taking this out, if you really wanted to play this card, I think Phyrexian Delver would be the version you'd want to play, as Phyrexian Delver just casts Reanimate every single time, right? It's always going to bring back the next creature, and though it's going to cost you life because it is Reanimate, it is going to be the best way to do this. You don't have to worry about what's in your graveyard in terms of non-creatures. You can just use this card and get the results you want. Now, Goblin Dark Dwellers does have a little more utility because it can kind of hit other cards, but I think generally, I don't think that's really where you want to be. Your ability to entomb cards and Buried Alive and all of that, I think you'll just be happier getting the big creatures in and then immediately reanimating them. Whereas Goblin Dark Dwellers represents, you know, you need to entomb a creature and a reanimation spell. Phyrexian Delver just comes in and reanimates. So if you want this ability, I would say Phyrexian Delver would be better, but even then, I don't particularly like it. Kura the Boundless Sky feels weird. I think both the abilities that they have aren't particularly good. You don't really need more, like 3 lands is cool, like draw 3, but since your main plan is to cheat these creatures out, I don't necessarily think this is the direction to go into of like playing land by land, where you rather be ramping instead of just doing it fairly. And the idea of creating one really big creature also doesn't really fly, because if you're reanimating creatures and you reanimate Kura, for example, you might not have that much mana to get a big creature. And even then, a 4/4 flying Death Touch that on death makes like an 8/8, I don't think that's good enough. That's not particularly Timmy, right? That's a combination. You don't have sack effects. I think Kura can easily go. Lisa, on the other hand, I think is pretty good. I do like how her ability works really, really well with like all of your creatures dying, so you get them back, so that's nice. Peregrine Drake, I'm kind of iffy on. I'm sure there's a combo. There has to be somewhere here a combo. Peregrine Drake combos with like a gust of wind. It's kind of like Gave in that way. But I'm just going to assume there's a blink combo here. But even then, I don't think this is where the deck wants to be. Like, this is a combo card. This isn't a Timmy card. You're not, like, the whole reason to cast or reanimate this card is to generate mana. And if you were using Kenrith to reanimate this card, well, you're not getting that far ahead. Even with mana cost reduction, let's say we reduce Kenrith's mana to like 3. So it's 2 and a black to reanimate Peregrine Drake. You untap 5 lands, all of a sudden you're up 3 mana. You've got 8 mana. That's really cool to cast a lot of your deck, but at the same time, I don't know if that's worth it. Like, a lot of things have to be going right for that to happen. You need Peregrine Drake in the graveyard, you need something to cast with all that mana, and you also need to have, like, a more reasonable reanimation target to go for, right? Or a more, like, something else to cast. And think of, like, the floor for Peregrine Drake is that if Peregrine Drake's in the graveyard, you reanimate Peregrine Drake, it untaps your mana, you get to then reanimate the next creature, and cool, you got a Peregrine Drake in addition to your other ability. But that's like the same as Phyrexian Delver. And something worth noting is that if you reanimate Peregrine Drake, the trigger goes on the stack, your opponents can destroy Kenrith in that moment if it's beneficial to them, especially because Peregrine Drake is really, really scary to players, so they'll go out of their way to make sure that you lose, like, Kenrith is off the field or anything else that combos with it. They'll get really suspicious and they'll start burning out your creatures. So I really don't see it here. I don't think this is the thing you're going for, so I would cut it for sure. Scarab God is great, a nice reanimation target ability, kind of redundant for your commander. I really like that. Aggressive Mammoth, I don't really like it here because your commander has this ability, right? Your commander for 1 red mana can reanimate, can give creatures trample and a haste. So having that trample for 1 red is like, it's already good enough. That being said, Aggressive Mammoth is a really, really big guy, so you might just be happy casting it. It's a very Timmy card, so I won't be too hard on it, but I will say this ability feels a little redundant in a deck that has such an easy time getting that ability. We're actually past the 5 mana cards, so I might pop in to see what other 5 mana cards we have. We have Crux of Fate, Living Death, Tragic Arrogance, and I think between these, Crux of Fate is by far the weakest. You don't have an overwhelming amount of dragons. You have some dragons, but maybe not enough for me to consider that it's worth running Crux of Fate. Especially considering that you might have a dragon opponent. If you're bringing this deck, and I'm assuming people are bringing equal powered decks, the chances of someone having dragons is not 0. So with that in mind, I don't like Crux of Fate as much as Living Death and Tragic Arrogance. I would recommend, if you're looking for more board clears, to go down to Damnation, go down to Wrath of God, go into maybe even Toxic Deluge if you're not playing it already. Because remember, the goal is to avoid cards that are at 5 mana, because those cards will like compete with our commander. So anything we can do to get out of that zone, even if we play cards that are slightly worse, though I would say Damnation and Wrath of God are better than Crux of Fate, is just going to be a really good thing to do. So I would recommend that for sure. Now let's take a look at a few of the higher mana cards. I started with the Mammoth, but I'm going to go through these a little faster. Because a lot of them match, but some of them don't. Kyrie the Swirling Sky. So you're going to bounce total mana 6 or less, mill 6 cards, and put 2 instants and sorceries. Okay. I do like that they have Ward 3. I would say that's much better than Death Touch on the other one. This is a better dragon for sure. But even then, without a sacrifice outlet, I just don't think this is going to work the way you want it to. Because your opponents are going to bring like Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, right? And they're going to use it on this creature, and they'll pay the ward cost. If they're worried about, you know, the 6/6, they'll just exile it, right? And then you're just not going to get the ability off. And the thing is, even if you get an ability off, I do really like that the first ability, which I think is stronger, will bounce any number of tokens. This is really good against treasures. This is really good against any form of token deck. I'm a big fan of that. And the second one is at least on theme to mill a bunch of your cards and then try to reanimate that. Try to like get the reanimation pieces back in your hand of getting reanimate back, etc. I just don't see it though. It's just a lot of work. It's not a very Timmy card. They don't have an ETB. I think a lot of times you're going to cast this and you're just going to be stuck with a 6/6 flyer. And though a 6/6 flyer is impressive, I don't think it is a Timmy card. And I'm going to show you what I mean once I get to my inclusions or my additions. Kogla is fine. I really do like Kogla. Sun Titan. Sun Titan feels, I wonder if I click this, is it going to get bigger or is it going to, yeah, it's going to go to a different page. I always miss Moxfield when we're not, oh, hello. Let's refresh you. So Sun Titan feels like a very, very strange inclusion here. Mainly because, let's see what we can do. We can come here and we can see we have at 3 mana and below, I wish I could see permanents. At 3 mana and below, we have 1 creature, 3 creatures. We have 4 creatures that are 3 mana and below. I guess I could have just looked here. We have 6 artifacts that are 3 mana and below, and 1 enchantment. So adding that together, we have 11 targets for Sun Titan. Now Sun Titan does get lands, but we're missing a lot. We're missing the main way to do this, which is fetch lands. Hint, this is a cards I'm going to be suggesting. But Sun Titan just doesn't have any reasonable picks, right? Something to consider is that, like, if you're playing Sun Titan and you're just reanimating the lands you've naturally discarded or, you know, have just gone to the graveyard one way or the other, like mill or otherwise, it's basically a really, really fancy Solemn Simulacrum, right? ETB, get a land into play, and then on attack, get a land into play. Yeah, that's not bad, but it's not great. It's slow. With Kenrith's Haste, yeah, you can get 2 lands, but I'm concerned how you're going to get that first land in without casting Faithless Looting or Faithful Mending. You know, I'm not quite sure how you're going to get that second one in either. It is something that, you know, concerns me. And so with that in mind, I really don't think this is the deck for Sun Titan. Sun Titan, I see Sun Titan a lot. And I will say something I like a lot more is when it is in a deck that either is very much themed in Blink or very much themed in discard or self-mill. Like, you have to go out of your way to make sure you always have things in the graveyard to use with Sun Titan. And something on that mind that's worth considering is that when you cast Entomb, what are you grabbing, right? Because you're not entombing okay, maybe Chromatic Lantern because it's so strong to your deck. But like, you're not like entombing Biomancer's Familiar so that you can reanimate it, right? You're entombing Dawnglade Regent, a much, much stronger card, right? And that's the way you should be thinking about it. So because Sun Titan doesn't hit those things, I don't see it, you know, being particularly strong. Likewise, Triskelion, a card that is really good with infinite mana, especially with Kenrith. I'm sure you have a way to have infinite mana here. I have to believe you. There's Peregrine Drake in the deck, and when Peregrine Drake is in the deck, I assume there's a way to get infinite mana. And so if you want that infinite mana win, Triskelion's really there for you, but I am going to say Triskelion is not what strikes me as a Timmy card. This isn't a flashy creature. It's a 4/4, and its cool thing is that it has an activated ability. That's not Smash. That's not large. That's, you know, that's a combo card. I like Triskelion. It's a very good card that can, like, with Proliferate or other +1/+1 counter strategies, can really take out a lot of very high value targets or defeat an opponent by just draining them in general. So with that in mind, I just don't think it really belongs here. This isn't the card you want to reanimate, so I think I would generally just drop this. Angel of Serenity is great. I have no problem with that. Angel of the Ruins is interesting. I don't know if it's really the card I want to be at, but like Plane Cycling is really good, and then being able to reanimate this and exile 2 target artifacts and or enchantments, that's also really good. So maybe I'm okay with this, but it seems it is a 5/7. Okay, I think this is fine. I won't harp on it too much. I think as long as you get the targets out and it's a Plane Cycler, yeah, I'm pretty happy. Dawnglade Regent is really, really good. No problem there. Demon of Loathing. I loathe this demon. Flying Trample at a 7/7. It's a good body, but at the same time, it has to attack. It has to deal combat damage, not even attack. It's even worse than an attack trigger. It's a combat damage trigger. And in Commander, forcing someone to sacrifice once is not ideal. One day I'll get together and make that Aristocrats video, but one of the key things to think about is that sacrifice is really good when it's like a critical mass. A single sacrifice off of Demon of Loathing is not very, very good. It's like they're going to lose a token, they're going to lose their worst creature. Yes, you might be able to target the player whose only card is their commander, but then it might be you're picking on the weakest player, right? And you should be attacking someone else. I don't know. I'm not too impressed by it. I think there's much better, bigger demons at better rates that do better things. For example, Lorcan. Lorcan is fantastic. I love Lorcan. We don't need to talk about them. They're great. Likewise, Sepulchral Primordial is also very, very good. Very great. Tyrant's Familiar is good. I don't like Lieutenant. I was just doing a video about this, or I talked about this in a previous video. Lieutenant is really reliant on your commander, and though this is already like meant to be reanimated by your commander, the thing is, it just makes it into a 7. Like, I don't mind it. It becomes a 7/7 haste, deals 7 damage. Well, it always has haste, but 7/7 deals 7 damage to target creature of the player you're attacking. It's like a much better Demon of Loathing. So I do like it, but it's not the greatest card. I think it's fine. It fits the theme really well. You're going to be really happy reanimating it. I don't think that's a problem. So I would say probably keep it. Looking around if there's anything else that catches my eye. I guess Vanquish the Horde, I should have said this is probably, we have 1 less 7 mana or higher card because we should be assuming this is 2 mana. If you're playing this, you should be playing Blasphemous Act. They're kind of the same spell, but one is better because 1 mana is cheaper than 2 mana. And then Depter's Knell. I think this is fine. I don't think this is bad. I don't know if I love it. And the reasoning is that it's just a card that doesn't really do enough. It takes a whole turn cycle for it to do anything, and unlike all of the other higher mana cards in your deck, you actually can't reanimate it, which is kind of a real problem. So it kind of stands out as a card that's tricky to use. Whereas I think if you want this kind of like turn after turn reanimation, there's angels that allow you to, maybe let's find that. Let's find that angel. Let's duplicate, go to advance, say angel. I believe she's a legendary angel in white, which I'm sure there's not too many. Where are you? Yeah. Rhea Dawnbringer should be the version. My god, that text, that is vicious. You have not died until I consent. What a nightmare. So, I like her a lot more because at least you can reanimate her, but she's otherwise the exact same card. I will say, I think the Depter's Knell is any graveyard. Yeah, it's any graveyard, but I will easily trade it for the ability to reanimate Rhea yourself. And I think you're just going to be a lot happier with this card in general because it just is more on theme. She can attack. You can give her haste. I think you're just going to have a better time with Rhea. And as a 4/6, you can block really, really well, which is nice. Okay, so those are generally my thoughts on the higher cost cards. Let's start my additions, or suggestions, I should say, with mana. The not as fun portion of it, but the necessary portion. Actually, before I go and say my additions, I will say 35 lands is probably a little too few for a 5 mana commander. Even with all the ramp you have, I don't know if I'd go much past, like, maybe 36 would be fine, but 35 is a bit low. You're in 5 colors. Every one of your land drops is really, really good, and we're going to try to fix your mana a little bit in a second, so things to consider. Okay, so the idea here is that a lot of your ramp is in green, which for things like Cultivate, Kodama's Reach, Circuitous Route, all of these are good, but they do kind of get you stuck on green. This is kind of like the main color, which I think was here, yep, is black, followed by white, then followed by green, but a lot of that green is for either some of our reanimation targets or our ramp. So I'd like some of our ramp to be colorless. You're playing a single signet, and I don't know how much I agree with that. I think you should play more. Now you are playing the Orzhov signet, which is objectively the correct colors in Magic, but we can see here that white is your black and white are your biggest colors. Maybe black, I can't tell off of this graph, but it's close. So I do appreciate that. But what I would do, because what makes the signets really good is you don't need any base colors. You don't need blue to use a Zoria signet to get blue, which is really, really nice. So what I would do is I don't know if I'd play all 10. And over here, we're going to also have the talismans, which are our next one. Now, I would probably play the signets first and then the talismans, because the signets' ability to make 2 colors is really, really good, whereas talismans, you have to pick between them, and it deals damage. What I would probably start with is by playing the black ones. Dimmer, Golgari, Orzhov, and Rakdos. Those 4 should be probably all of the signets you'd need, because they will cover your strongest, like your most often played color first, and then cover your secondary color second. That is the direction I would probably lead in. And then, if you're still feeling the mana that you would need more, I would lean into the talismans, probably with the same idea of going hierarchy, where's black-green, resilience, and then after indulgence and dominance. In that order, probably too. So those would be my thoughts for mana rocks. You are a 5-color deck with huge mana cost creatures, and even though I've reduced a lot of high mana cost, almost all of my suggestions are going to be high mana cost. So having the extra ramp is really not a problem. Remember that Kenrith has a mana sink attached to him. If you ever get to the point that you're like, I have too much mana and nothing to do, well, Kenrith comes with a draw ability for 4 mana. Or you can just burn the mana on the lower abilities. Gaining 5 life in 3s is not bad. You know, people sometimes underestimate the ability to just top off your health to kind of dissuade aggro players or enable your reanimate strategies without feeling the tension of being burned out, right? Or the ability to spread 2 or 3 +1/+1 counters can be a really big difference in the game. So I would very much so remember that, like, you can't go wrong playing more ramp. You have the means to spend that mana. So I would consider those. One more thing that's kind of on mana. I said before, I don't want to lean too much into how to make Kenrith broken, because you don't really need that. You already have a game plan. But Training Grounds is the main card to use with Kenrith, and it just got a reprint. I sold mine, thankfully, when they were incredibly expensive, but Training Grounds has just been reprinted. I can see it's a few dollars American, and it reduces Kenrith's powers by costs by 2. That is really, really good. That's already along the way to set up for 3 mana reanimates, and then with your other cards in the deck, you can get a 1 black mana reanimation, and then you're good. You are so good. Something that's worth considering, I don't know if you know this, something that you can do if you're worried, like if someone's pointing removal at Kenrith or something like that, you can stack your triggers in a way so they fall, so they like happen in a, you know, a proactive manner where you can use, so someone points, you know, or like you try to reanimate a creature, and let's say we have it so everything, you have mana to do it infinite times. You want to reanimate a creature, and then someone points removal at Kenrith. What you can do is use that first ability, keep it on the stack, like hold priority, and then start reanimating all of your other creatures. So that after all the creatures are reanimated, they will get the trample and haste ability before Kenrith is removed off the battlefield. So you don't have to worry about the fact Kenrith won't be on the battlefield when all the reanimations resolve. I guess that doesn't even matter, because you could just do it the other way. I just like I guess you could just keep using the ability if you have infinite mana. So let's rephrase that example. If you don't have infinite mana, what you can do is use the trample haste and then the reanimations, so that you know for sure you're going to get all those creatures to have haste, and you're using your mana efficiently. So just something to think about. All right, so earlier when I said we're going to cut into that budget a little bit, I had forgotten. This is what we're going to do. We are going to talk about fetch lands. Probably not too long. I feel like this video has been going on for a while. Let's see. 30 minutes. Okay. Let's go through this fast. Fetch lands are key to multicolored decks in Commander. For players who have played without fetch lands for a very long time, I really have to tell you there is real power in fetch lands. Especially when you go into a lot of colors. When you have access to these cards, you have access to all of your colors, especially with the advent of triomes. If your budget allows you, depending on what you want, I would pick up as many of these as you can. The enemy colored ones aren't too expensive because they were reprinted, and one hopes they'll be reprinting the allied side pretty good. Or for those who proxy, these are ideal proxy cards. These are just really good. You get as many as you can, and then get as many triomes as you're willing to get. I would probably say 4 or 5. You don't need the whole set of 10 triomes. That's a lot of tapped lands. Or what you can do is look at every land you have that comes in tapped, which I don't think you have too many. You have okay, you're playing the tri-lands. So you can easily just replace every tri-land or every tap land with a tri-land if you want to keep the numbers the same. With a triome. So that way the numbers will be the same for your tap lands, but you probably don't need to play all 10. You can probably get away with 5. And then you play as many shock lands as you can. I saw you already have them, so you're generally good. This is the investment. This is the investment that I'd like you to make. Not only is this good for this deck, this will be good for every Commander deck going forward if you ever take apart the deck. Fetch lands are just really strong. They allow you to have perfect mana. And you know, the thing is there's a lot of thought, you know, put towards how good duels are, like original duels, but I would just argue fetch lands are better. They are more affordable, they are more accessible, they go into any deck with colors as long as one of the 2 colors is in your deck. So good. Play these, especially in decks that are 3 mana or higher. Okay, those are all the boring inclusions. I have about, let's say 8, I think that's 8 big Timmy cards that I'd like you to consider and to play. The first one is Xenagos, God of Revels. I feel like this is the poster child of Timmy cards. Not only does it do something like the haste is something your commander already gives, but that's not what we're using it. This creature doubles the power and adds that much power to the toughness of any creature once per combat. This is really, really good. It is at the same mana as your commander, and the other card I'm going to suggest is too, but the purpose is this kind of is redundancy for your commander. Though we're just doing a redundancy for the Timmy plan and not the reanimation plan, it's still just really, really good to have Xenagos out and just make your flying creatures insanely big, make your trample creatures insanely big, and just smash so much face. You're just going to be so happy having this card. You can reanimate it, and when you do, it becomes an enchantment if you don't have enough devotion. Fantastic card. You're going to be very, very happy. The other 5 mana card I want to suggest is Ilharg, as Ilharg is another form of redundancy for your commander. However, it operates in a different way. Instead of cheating into play by reanimation, it's going to cheat your creatures into play directly. Whenever he attacks, you are going to place one of the creatures in your hand tapped and attacking. And that means your big 7 mana, 6 mana, your big creatures, you're going to put it immediately, into play attacking and reap the rewards as if you've just reanimated them. Yes, at the end of the turn, they will return to your hand. That's okay. You're going to be fine with that because the goal is to do this again and again. Ilharg himself is also just a very, very good, it's a very, very good reanimation target. Have them out, give them haste, attack, immediately start getting effects. This is just a really good card. You're going to be really, really happy to have this ability. I like that the 2 cards I've added already are gods. If that's not Timmy, I don't know what is. Something I always like is Thorn Mammoth. Thorn Mammoth is also like 60 cents. That's amazing. Is stupidly good. Stupidly good. When you are playing Timmy, this is the elephant I want you to play. Comes into play, immediately destroys a creature, and then whenever you play another creature, it also will then eat another creature. This card, especially when you have things like Xenagos or other ways to make this creature larger, really, really benefits from it, both in the fighting, both the fact it naturally has trample. You're going to be very happy with this creature. It's going to smash so much face. And 6/6, I would say, is comfortably above any commander, most commanders that you'll see. Like, Kenrith is smaller than a 6/6, right? If Thorn Mammoth comes out, you should be able to snipe someone's commander pretty easily. And then after which, as you go on, like after Thorn Mammoth probably recovers at the end of the turn, every subsequent turn, if you can reanimate on other people's turn, for example, I don't think it's sorcery, yeah, you're going to be just taking out creatures over and over. It's just a really, really, really cool card. Something a little less fancy, but really, really fun is Tyrannix Rex. Tyrannix Rex is just a really cool amount of abilities put together. An 8/8 is already, with Trample, Haste, and Ward 4, is already really good, but the Toxic 4 is really just fantastic here. This means Tyrannix Rex represents a 3-turn clock against any opponent. And this works really well, knowing the amount of poison counters there are around these days. Adding 4, if there is one player that is even somewhat dedicated to Toxic or Infect, playing this card will allow you to snipe opponents out of the game. Because your opponents are going to be, if you have an Infect players are pretty reliable to get your opponents to like 5 or 6 poison counters, and then you can just throw this out, attack with it. Remember, Toxic isn't like Infect, you just need to do that 1 point of damage, and you have 8 damage to trample through with, and bam, you've taken them out of the game. It's very good. Ward 4 is exceptionally good. You're probably going to reanimate this creature, but if you don't, the fact that it cannot be countered is also really, really good. I think this card is just absurdly strong. I think it is very much so underestimated. Ward 4 is a really, really high amount. You're going to do really, really well with this creature. Let's talk about something a little more expensive in terms of real-world dollars, but really, really fun. Cloth Unrivaled Ancient. Cloth, whenever Cloth attacks, you generate that much mana until end of turn to cast spells with. Now, the downside, and of course the mana generated is the total power of attacking creatures, which Cloth will give 4 towards. So here's the thing. Unfortunately, we cannot use this mana to activate Kenrith. This is kind of a bummer here. But we can use this mana to play the other big creatures that we have. If we attack with Cloth and like just, I don't know, one more other creature, we're gonna have like almost 10 mana. Untap, spend that 10 mana on like big creatures like Thorn Mammoth or Tyrannix Rex, and you're just going to be very, very far ahead and set up to, you know, defeat your opponent's next turn. And should you lose your board or those creatures die, they are now in the graveyard and reanimation becomes easier. Cloth is just really good at taking those creatures out of your graveyard, out of your hand, and into the graveyard where they do the most for you. So I really, really like Cloth here. 3 more. Villis, Broker of Blood. You are a primary black deck. Enjoy the best demon you can summon. I think there's some argument that the other one that sacrifices creatures to tutors is better. However, that's probably at higher power levels than this. Here, Villis is by far the strongest one. You'll have extra black mana to activate Villis's ability. You have Reanimate style cards that will drain you for life. You're just going to draw so many cards. Villis is such a beast. Once Villis comes down, I don't expect you to untap with less than like 5 to 10 cards in your hand again, and you're going to be really, really happy with the result. It's also an 8/8 flyer, which is fantastic to give trample and haste to, so that you can just immediately smash your face. This says about $7. I'll say about probably you'll get it for 10 American, but absolutely worth it. I love this creature. He is so strong. Another primordial that I think is just flashy. I don't think I'm actually going to suggest you play this, but when it comes down to, I was looking for Timmy cards, and this is very much so a Timmy card. Molten Primordial comes into play and immediately acts of treason, 3 different creatures, 1 from each opponent. That's just really, really strong. When you do this, you know, you're basically putting in a swing that should take out at least 1 opponent. Especially if other decks are about the same power level as you and have quite a bit of large creatures. You can take the biggest creatures, pay an additional red to give them trample, because that's most likely what they're missing, and then attack out, hopefully taking out 1 or 2 players from the game. It is a bit cute, it is a bit clunky, but when it's good, it's really good, so I did want to suggest that. Man, the Primordials are so weird looking, I really like them. Alright, last card, also from the same set, I think, yes. We have Lord of the Void. Lord of the Void is, I think, I want this in here to replace the Loathsome Demon. I don't think that's actually what it's called. A Demon of Loathing. To me, it's a Loathsome Demon. I would like this card to replace that card, because they work really, really similarly. Lord of the Void is a 7/7 for 7. And it has flying, it doesn't have trample, but it has a combat damage ability, but this ability is way better. So when it deals damage, you exile the top 7 cards of their deck, and then you put any creature card from there onto the battlefield. You're not always going to hit, so be aware to hit the right creature, right? You want to hit the player that is most likely to have the biggest and more consistent deck full of creatures, and so with that in mind, this card just has a really high ceiling. To me, this feels like the ultimate Timmy card. You play it, you smash, you get more big creatures, you're really happy, you have a 7/7. I think this card would be really good in the deck. All right, let's conclude. A lot of my suggestions up front were about reducing or adjusting the mana cost of the deck, and mainly thinking about mana colors with fetch lands and mana rocks with talismans and signets. I suggested a bunch of different other Timmy cards to put in. I would say probably the most important ones are Ilharg, Xenagos, and probably Villas. Those are the ones I would suggest for sure. Tyrannix is really, really cool, and Cloth is really, really cool. They'd be the next ones I'd put in. Rhea should probably completely just replace Depter's Knell, and make sure to put at least like one extra land in the deck. Now, there's a lot of other things about this deck I'd like to work on, but this is where we're at here. A few things I'd like to think about in the future mainly are card draw and maybe other forms of graveyard tutors, such as Unmarked Grave or other strategies that lean towards that, so that we can go more directly into a reanimation strategy. And then the next step would probably be deciding the power level of the deck, because like I said at the start of the video, Kenrith just represents a wide power level scale, and we need to kind of hone in on where we want to be. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If you're interested in further building and working on this deck, I'd love if you could send me another draft. And if you want to send me a draft of this deck or any deck, there is a link in the video description to do so. And if, like Arctic, you'd like to bring your deck to the top of the queue, there is a link to that as well in the video description below. Finally, if you'd like to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube thing, you know where it's at. It'd be very helpful for the channel. Once again, thank you, Arctic, for supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate it. I like a Reanimator strategy for Kenrith. I think there's a lot of fun ways we can build this deck, and I really like the direction it's going in. So I hope to see more of it, and good luck making it better.